Is Eric Migicovsky. I'm one of the partners here at Combinator. I work on the startup school team. We're just going to wait for everyone to kind of file their way in to the virtual lecture hall, and we'll get started in just a minute or two. Cool. Looking like most of you found the way in. Again, my name is Eric. It's incredibly awesome to have you all here. The Build Sprint is a relatively new addition to Startup School. This is only our second, and we're still figuring it out, but we're so excited to have you here with us. The last Build Sprint happened in the fall last year, and it was phenomenally successful. We saw hundreds, thousands of startups get created, and a multitude of new products and services launched during just 4 weeks. That really is what the Build Sprint is all about, a focused opportunity for you to say, I really just want to accomplish this one aspect of my startup. We're going to talk a little bit today about what some of the things you can target to set your goals for during the Build Sprint. Then we're going to have a short interview with 2 different companies that are going through the Build Sprint. And finally, towards the half-hour mark, I'm going to open the floor up to questions from you. So if you have any questions about your startup, question about the Build Sprint, question about Startup School, question about Y Combinator, I'm here to just answer them. And it sounds like my 4-month-old baby is also here. He's available as well to take questions, so his answers are slightly incomprehensible still. Cool, so we have a Q&A feature set up. That is going to be the primary place that you ask questions. I will do my best to work my way through most of them, all of them. Last time during the Build Sprint, we got a lot of questions. So if you got a good question, feel free to throw it into the chat right now. And maybe some other people have the same question. They'll vote it up to the top as well. Cool. Let me share my screen. Awesome. So the first thing you may be thinking about during the Build Sprint is, what should my goal be? What should the thing that I want to accomplish after 4 weeks be? And for the vast majority of you, the number one best thing to focus on is actually to launch your startup. In particular, we've seen a lot of successful companies get their start through the Build Sprint as an opportunity to say, I've been working on a small side project, or I have an idea for a project. Can I launch this to the public? Can I get the first users onto the platform or onto this new service within a short 4-week sprint? You may be asking, what is a launch, or why should I launch, or when should I launch? A launch can be as simple as telling your friends that you're working on this product and making your website go live. It could be even more complicated if you want. You can try to get press, you can try to get bloggers to talk about it, but it really doesn't have to be that complicated. A launch, if you're in Startup School, could be as simple as posting a link on the Startup School forum and trying to get other founders who are in Startup School interested in your product. The real value of a launch is starting to get actual users using your product and giving you feedback. Ideally, paying users if you can. But that's, again, not a requirement for launching. We've seen companies go through Startup School and execute on a variety of different ways that they can get kind of the word out about their product and to start getting users onto their app or service or company. So I threw up a list here. These are not an exhaustive list of different ways that you can launch, but really my intention here is to convey how easy it is to start getting people excited and interested in using your product. You do not have to have a complicated launch. It does not have to be something that you work on for weeks or months just to get going. Honestly, most of you could launch probably within the week if you get a website going and you get some sort of marketing materials that you could use to talk about your startup. In general, there are many reasons why you should launch now. I've talked to a lot of founders, and many people come up with these kind of very exhaustive and complicated excuses in their mind as to why they should not launch. Maybe they're worried about competitors. Maybe they're worried about investors. Maybe they're worried about how people will see or look at their earliest version, their MVP of their startup. Well, the truth is that many startups have to launch over and over and over again. Your first launch may feel like it's a big deal, but in all honesty, it's just the first of many. And again, there's tons of reasons why you should try to launch as soon as possible. And when in doubt, like we're more than happy to talk through it. And you'll find that a lot of companies that are going through the build sprint are already launched. And so you could probably chat with some of the other founders and ask what was their experience putting their MVP out into the world for the very first time. We also have several, a really good video written by, or produced by Kat Manalik, who's on the PR team here at Y Combinator. She's created a kind of tutorial on how to launch your company again and again and again. So if you're interested in launching, go to startupschool.org/curriculum and check out the how to launch video. The second thing I hope you all are thinking about is setting a goal for yourself, something that you believe would make a big difference to your company if you accomplish that over the next 4 weeks. Careful though, because it is possible to trick yourself into setting what we call a fake goal. Fake goals are things that sound impressive and may be cool to put to tweet or to put up on your website, but aren't actually things that get you closer to having a successful startup. These are things like going to conferences or competing in pitch competitions or going to network events or trying to get famous on Clubhouse. These things may be useful, but they're a means to an end. They are not the ultimate goal. Ultimate goal for the vast majority of companies are more revenue or getting more active users. And I would challenge most people to think about setting a numeric goal, one that they can actually measure using math and know whether they've hit it or not. Some examples of real goals could be for a company that's maybe unlaunched. Your goal during the build sprint could be to launch and to get your first revenue, maybe to try to get to $500 in MRR or monthly recurring revenue. That's a great goal. That would be fantastic. Like, think of how awesome it would make you feel if you're currently working on this idea today, and then in 4 weeks, you have the first 10 customers paying you for this product. It just feels amazing because it feels like there's someone who's like pulling the product out of you and really getting value out of it. If your product is maybe more of a consumer application, maybe a free app, it's possible that you may set a goal that is not specifically revenue related. And in that case, a lot of users, a lot of companies like to set goals related to the number of active users that are using their platform. It's important not to mistake this for the number of registered users or people signed up. Active users implies that they're actually using your product or your app or your service on a regular basis and presumably getting value out of it because they're coming back on a regular basis. With those goals in mind, some of the best and most effective things that you can do to accomplish those goals in 99% of the cases are two very simple things. One is talk to users, which would be potential customers, future customers, people that tried the product and are not using it, or people that tried the product and are using it. And using the feedback, using the information, using the data that you collect from these interviews to kind of plug back into the product and just build a better and more engaging, more useful service or product. There's a fantastic video by Michael Seibel. Actually, I think it's a blog post by Michael Seibel about how to prioritize your tasks. This is one of the first things that we present to the companies that are going through Y Combinator. It's literally, the first thing in the handbook, and we actually have published this online, so you can check it out. He provides a methodology for kind of like a 1-week sprint or 1-week cycle of having an idea, implementing the idea, building it, getting feedback on it, and then coming back after the week to analyze what you accomplished and kind of take the learnings and direct it into the next weeks of work. Some of the best companies that go through the build sprint actually use 1-week sprints within the build sprint to kind of break down tasks and make sure that they're on track to hitting their larger 4-week goal. We also have a video from Adora, a recent partner, recently departed partner from YC, who produced a great video on how to set goals and how to set key performance indicators, which you can feel free to use during the build sprint. Awesome. Well, that's it from kind of my droning on. I'm very excited now to bring up a couple companies that are going through the build sprint and kind of have a conversation similar to the ones that I would have with companies that are going through Y Combinator and talk about what their company is working on, maybe talk a little bit about how they pitch or present the company, and then talk about what their focus is for the build sprint, and maybe see if I could help on any of the topics that they're working on. If you'd like to participate in this this type of an office hour, you can. I'm just trying to find out where I lost my video. You can sign up for next week. We're actually going to be doing this this format of a session every week. So if you'd like to join in, be sure to watch out for an email from us at the beginning of next week to sign up. Cool. I have managed to screw something up in Zoom. 1 second. Joan, will it be terrible if I leave and come back in like a millisecond?
No, I don't think anything will break.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I'm back. That was, I'm going to blame that one on Linux. Cool. So the first person that I'd like to invite up are the founders of Simply Independent. Jenny and Yilan, are you here? Do you mind making your video show up? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Yilan. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Yilan.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. Our company really appreciates this opportunity to be
Well, you haven't even had it yet, so you can't tell me whether it's worthwhile after the
Oh, right. Okay, I'll give you a
just
quick.
Devastating and be totally useless. So you could reserve judgment until after that. But it is great to meet you, Yilan and Jenny. Why don't you start by telling us what is Simply Independent?
We're a company that helps seniors age in place. We are building a dual-sided marketplace that matches caregivers to families with elderly seniors and people with disabilities, where they need to take care of them. So it's kind of like a caregiver matchmaking platform. We're also very interested in looking at assisted living facilities as one of our clients. That's sort of what we're doing.
Cool. I will say that that's a fantastic one-liner because I can immediately understand what you all are working on. One thing that I always like to do is whenever I hear a new startup's pitch, I like to repeat it back to them, because not only does it help me kind of understand, kind of in my mind what you're working on, but it's also a chance for you to hear what the reflection of your pitch is from someone else. Oftentimes, for people that don't have as good a one-liner as you, it's almost like a game of broken telephone, where you hear the person listen to your pitch and then repeat back something that is not at all what you're working on. But let me take a shot. So I think Simply Independent is a website marketplace where individuals who need to find help for their aging grandparents or parents could find caregivers who will come to their house and maybe spend time with them during the day taking care of them. But presumably this is not like a nursing, full nursing capability.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. The only qualification I might add is there a particular region of the world that you're focused in?
Because it involves in-person care and meeting face-to-face, we're not just a software product. We are starting from San Francisco and Southern California because that is where our company is officially based, but also where we do have some contacts and some local sort of grassroots support. And there's a huge population of seniors in San Diego and in Orange County that we want to tap into.
Yeah, I might qualify by just adding that California bit, just so people don't get their hopes up too much and they know. It also makes it more clear for people in California, like they're definitely the ones that you're targeting. Awesome. So what stage are you at with your company?
We recently just pivoted. We pivoted last Friday. So this product in particular, we're just talking to users. However, we do have a website that is up that both provide caregivers and families can sign up. So technically, I guess that's a very, very low level MVP, but we didn't need to actually change the product. We just put up 2 different landing pages.
What were you working on before this?
We were delivering in-home exercises to seniors and trying to get them to adhere to their physical therapy exercises between in-person physical therapy meetings. And we really try to leverage the social distancing and COVID to do that. We're having a lot of trouble with Facebook marketing, direct-to-consumer marketing. We also found that we had 700 people sign up saying they're interested. About 6 people attend a live class demo and no conversions. It's after 2 months. So we had a learning from that this is a very nice to have, but we might have built a product that nobody actually wants to pay for.
So have some of those people from the initial kind of conversations that you had expressed interest in finding a caregiver through your platform?
They have, or they have ordered caregivers before.
Okay, cool. Well, that's a perfect place to start. Marketplaces are a difficult beast sometimes because you have to bootstrap both sides of the marketplace. You have to find caregivers and you have to find people who want caregivers. But there's a fantastic essay by Paul Graham that's actually applicable to all companies, not just to marketplaces. It's called Do Things That Don't Scale, but it's especially applicable to marketplaces. We funded dozens, hundreds of them. And what we've found that founders generally do in the beginning is they kind of hack it. They act as the providers on the platform at the beginning. So I guess in your case, that might be to actually provide caregivers or to find friends and people, trusted people that you know to act accordingly on the marketplace. So what is your goal for the build sprint? What have you set as the target for the 4 weeks to accomplish?
We want to have 50 active users. That's 50 total, either families or the providers themselves. And we actually want to have 1 or 2 assisted living facilities use our services. And we might just do that for free as sort of a use case study to learn the differences between individual families and selling to senior communities.
Do you have an idea? Because those sound like very different products. Like one, if it's for individual parents or people who want to find help for their parents, that sounds like a very different website and a very different kind of marketplace than one that's for assisted living facilities. Do you have a gut feeling which way you're going to lean towards?
We might go to assisted living facilities simply because they have defined, they definitely will have demand, and they will have a set number of shifts that they have to fill. Oftentimes people drop out or last minute, things happen, and they have a pool of seniors where, whereas for families, it's more temporary. They might not need care for more than 2 months or 3 months. So it's a little bit more steady, potentially more steady revenue.
So the thing I would consider, just as you're thinking about that, it sounds a little bit more like you're creating a job board, though, if you're targeting assisted living facilities, because presumably they would hire people for weeks, months at a time, right?
But it's contract for a couple months.
Yeah, and so that's not necessarily a bad thing. There are plenty of websites that are focused on, say, building a similar marketplace for nurses. This is like a short-term nurse is something that hospitals and clinics need. But But I would just caution you that like the product that you would build would be very different depending on which path you go down. So maybe one thing to consider is just to bite the bullet and say, I want to go down the assisted living path and build a product for that use case. I think like having that focus will mean you can build a better product for those users versus having to juggle two different types of users in your mind and in your product at all times.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's definitely really helpful. And we have been struggling internally of which one to target, because from our learnings from the first failed product, it is extremely hard to market directly to seniors, but we are also thinking of marketing to their family members, which are usually, maybe dual earner, millennial, Gen X, families who are willing to pay for an out-of-box solution. So that was, that was sort of a thought there. But yeah, that was.
So I think like, I don't know the answer, and it's possible that you don't know the answer either, but sometimes it's just better to take a guess and to maybe set yourself, instead of the 4-week goal, maybe set a 1-week goal. And it could be to test the hypothesis. Should we target assisted living facilities, or should we target individuals who are trying to find care for their parents? And it's possible that you could craft an experiment trying to get the first 5 customers, trying to get people to pay, that would give you a sense, or even to try to talk to 50 people. Like if you talk to 50 people on one side of the equation, you might get a sense for whether this is actually the right thing for them. And then after the end of that week, you could use the remaining 3 weeks to just build the solution rather than constantly have to think like of 2 products to the entire build sprint.
Yeah, we also have an email list of 70 people 65 plus and who have pre-existing health conditions. We're of course, doing some email marketing, sending them surveys. I'd love to hear about other creative ways that maybe we could leverage those contacts.
Absolutely. I mean, the number one way is just to talk to people. You'd be surprised at how few startup CEOs actually get on the phone and talk to their users. So you can use this as a not so secret weapon. Because you're willing to do things that don't scale and talk to your users, you can get on the phone with them and try to understand what are the problems they have. And to do this, like there's I published a video for Startup School about talking to users. You can use a set of questions to actually get numerical answers to kind of what are the problems that they're facing, so that you'll have data that you could sit back with your co-founder and look at kind of numerically and say, like, what are the top problems that are facing our users today, and then build a solution accordingly. And the good news is once you've talked to these people and they've told you their inner desires and their inner problems, if you can solve them, they're basically primed and ready to pay you, because you just interviewed them and talked through all the issues that they're having. There's no way that they could really say no, because they're telling you their inner desire, like what they want to see built.
Makes sense. Awesome. Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Eric,
Cool.
building a marketplace can be a chicken and egg problem, and we would love to hear your thoughts on how to crack the nuts and get started, especially at the very early stage.
Yeah, definitely. I think the hack here is don't try to build both sides at the same time. Try to find a supply. Usually it's the supply that already exists. And so one way to do this, like on the Airbnb example, the way that they built a dual-sided marketplace is they actually posted on Craigslist and said, hey, are you renting out your space? We can help you, rent it out. Or what they did is they actually contacted people who had job posts already on Craigslist. Or sorry, job post. Apartment posts already, and said, hey, would you like to list it on our platform as well as Craigslist? So in your case, maybe that looks like finding a group of assisted living care providers and offering them to connect them for free with other jobs. And so you're kind of doing the job of the marketplace website yourself manually and earning the trust of these first kind of caregivers.
Awesome.
So to be very specific, what I mean is, instead of telling a potential caregiver to just go on your website and fill out a form, you would do the work for them, and then wait for someone to contact them. You would do the work for them to collect, maybe drive over to their house, do an interview, make sure, like, check their background, maybe do a background check on them. And then once you think you found a couple people that are good, go out and try to find them jobs and try to connect them with people who want to hire them without even going on the website, just doing it in your own mind. And you'll learn, what are the caregivers want to see, what are the questions that they have, what are the questions that the care facilities have, et cetera. And then once you've done that a couple times, you'll have a really good idea of how to build the website.
Makes sense. Awesome.
Cool. Well, it's great to meet you both. Good luck with the build sprint, and looking forward to hearing from you in a couple weeks how it goes.
Thank you very much.
Next up is Emilio and Rafaela with a company called PsyConnect. Are you all here?
Yes. Hi, Eric.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
Hello.
Hey.
Good to see you. Where in the world do you happen to be located?
In Ecuador.
Ecuador.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, welcome to Startup School. We have people from, normally we do a bit of a, what we do at the beginning of, when you join Startup School, we see how many different countries y'all are from. I imagine that we have people from a lot of different countries on the call today. So welcome. Cool. What is PsyConnect?
So we're a digital platform that connects users in order to provide and receive psychotherapeutic services, and also be able to measure that psychotherapeutic process.
What is a psychotherapeutical process? I don't actually know what that is.
Psychological therapy.
Yeah.
Psychological therapy. Okay. Like a psychologist?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
They're the same.
Yeah, like a therapist or psychologist. I'm not actually sure if those are similar things or not.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They are. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can call them psychologists. You can call them therapists. Like,
I know that in the US there is, I think it's generally referred to as therapy. Now I know that there's psychiatric therapy and psychological therapy, and I think therapy is kind of a cover for the psychological one. So the issue with having a complicated word in your one-liner is that if I don't understand what it is, or if I know generally kind of what psychotherapy is, but I wasn't sure what psychotherapeutical meant, it could be really bad, because now I generally, I'm busy thinking about what exactly that word is and not thinking about your startup. So maybe I could try saying it back to you. So we are a website where individuals can find therapists and actually meet with them online.
Yeah.
Is that what you do? A website that?
yeah, it's exactly that, and also it measures the process, like.
So you can have real-time data on whether you're actually making a progress and feeling better, or you should maybe take some decisions on your process in order to accomplish that, a state of well-being.
Tell me more about what you mean by that. Is this only during the therapy session, or yeah?
No, it's actually after you have completed each session, you have a couple of questions, and according to that, you'll be able to have graphic diagrams and numeric data where you can see how have you progressed and how you report to be, self-reporting on your state of well-being, basically.
Is that a service or an app? How as a person going through it, how do I actually use it?
I'd say it's more as a feature. It's a feature that you have once you sign up with one of our psychologists. So you are able to access to that service or that feature specifically after you have completed your first session and each session afterwards.
Got it. So it's more of a kind of tracking your progress as you take these sessions. Okay, I would hazard a guess that that's probably not the number one reason why. Do you think that that's your differentiator from other websites that offer therapy services?
At least in the market that we're focusing on right now, I would say yes, but probably in the US, it's completely different. They probably have more advanced or differentiated.
What market are you focused on initially?
So we're focused in Ecuador and Latin America, Chile specifically.
Okay, so I would probably change your one-line description to be something more like, we're PsyConnect. We make a website for individuals to find a therapist and attend therapy sessions online. We're focused on the Latin American market, just as a qualifier, so that people know if they're a user, a potential user, maybe they would know to use your website. And likewise, if they're an investor or someone else, they know that you guys are targeting Latin America specifically. Cool.
Great.
So what stage are you at right now with your startup?
So we're almost close to launch our MVP that we're expecting it to launch in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I think it's about March. And we're actually also working on the goal of increasing our gross merchandising volume by 2% each week. So far, we've got some good numbers since December, but we're also struggling with the part of the demand side. We have increased and generated, I think, I'd say a strong supply side. We have now more than 70 psychologists in our platform.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you. And almost 10 of them have already started paying for a membership. But the demand side is our problem, I'd say, because we're kind of struggling with the lead generation and the optimization of the conversion rates.
Okay, so let's break that down. How many people visited your website and signed up for more information in the last week?
In the last week, I would say about just 4, honestly.
Okay, so only 4 people visited your website?
No, our website, no, but actually sign up like the late capture, it's about 4. But the ones who have visited
your website?
What about was the conversion 62, rate? I'd say. The conversion rate was, yeah.
Yeah, that's not a terrible conversion rate. Roughly, average, 5 to 10% conversion would be great. So it might not be a lead problem. Have you talked to those 4 users? Like, did they put their phone number in?
Yeah, we actually talked to them, and most of them are more interested in directly going into the prices and how much does each session cost, and how does it work. But
and so do you have that on your website now?
On the website, no, that's the thing. We're kind of doing this manually because our website is working more just as a landing page where we contact directly to them and we actually speak to them about the platform.
So how many of the 4 people that registered their information became customers?
Actually just 1 out of those 4. Yeah. For now, I think it's 4. Probably we're going to close another one, but just 1.
Okay, so understanding that conversion rate, again, pretty normal, like 60 people, 4 conversions, and half of them may convert into sales. That's actually pretty impressive. So it sounds like you may not have a conversion problem. It sounds like the problem that you might have is at the top of the funnel. It sounds like you just need more people to come to your website. So you need to figure out a way of, instead of getting 60 people, to get 600 people, right? Because then, if the numbers hold, you'd have 40 conversions and 20 new customers. So maybe this is what I really like to do during a build sprint, is break down a high level problem into smaller goals that you could potentially work on over the span of just 1 week rather than the whole 4 weeks. So here it might be to say, the conversion funnel seems like it's doing okay. You have a process that has, 1 or 2 customers coming out the other side. What you really need to do is figure out how to get more people coming to your website. And so I would spend a week mainly thinking about, how did the 60 people who came to your website, how do they find out about it today? And can we either do more of that, figure out more ways of kind of getting people to come through, or do we have to find new ways of getting people to come to our website?
Great. I just have two more questions, and I'd like you to give me just your opinion. So one of the things that we're building right now, and we're almost ready to launch this week, is a test. So we're making like kind of a diagnostical test that is only 10 questions, so people can sign up and we can more traffic on the website. What do you think about that? Is that a good idea? We're actually trying to promote
I think you're missing my point. I think my point is that your website kind of works. The issue is getting more people to visit your website. So you have to consider, that's a lot of work to add a new test to your website. Will this cause more people to come to your site? And the answer is probably no, because how would they even know about this if they're not on your site already? And so I would guess that you need to figure out how to tell people about your website exists. Like, where do these people live? Do they talk about this with their friends? Do they hear about this on Facebook? What are the ways that they can hear about your website? The only thing I could think of is like, if you have this quiz, whether you could, I don't really know why adding a quiz to your website would cause more people to even hear about it. Like, you'd have to do advertising just to get people to hear that there is a quiz on your website. Quiz kind of, I think, more is about improving your conversion rate and less about getting people to your site in the first place. Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah, sure. And the other one is we're actually start to doubting about our business model, because right now we're
doubting about your business model. Why?
Yeah, because like on the demand side, what we do is a transactional model. So we charge a fee to the psychologists each time that we got a new patient for them. And the psychologists, at least the founders, do not have to pay. But I think the ones that registered lately, like this couple of weeks, they paid for a membership about $23 for 1 year. And we were wondering actually if it would be better to work as a service, as a software, instead of just being like a marketplace in charge also for each session.
Well, I will say that the grass is always greener on the other side, which is an expression that means if you're running into problems, you may think that giving up on this current track and just switching to a different one may be the better idea. I will caution you that this is not always the case. And I would kind of give you a bit of confidence that you have 10 people paying for it. You have 4 people who click to register and are interested. I don't think that you should give up that easily. I think that you should set a hard goal for yourself, like getting set a goal. Like, I want to get 100. You said 64 people came to your website last week. I want to get 500 people to come to my website this week, and just use that as your guiding principle. Like, how can I find 500 people to come to my website? And it's a hard goal. Like, you might not hit it, but man, if you just focus on this and nothing else for 1 week, there's a chance that if both of your brain powers are just getting funneled into this problem, you might actually solve it. You might actually hit 500. And if you hit 500 and you hold the same conversion rate, that's like a lot of customers. So try it. And the good news is if you fail, if you're not able to get 500 users onto the website, or you do get 500 users, but the conversion funnel doesn't hold up, you'll have learned a lesson. And maybe the answer is that this is not the right path, but at least you'll have actual hard data, rather than just trying to ask someone who knows nothing about your business whether that's the right idea to switch or not.
Yeah, great. I don't know if I have chance to one more question, or
yeah, let's hear one more.
Yeah, great. So actually, I was wondering, when is the right time, or when should we know to stop increasing our supply side, considering on the problem that I just mentioned, or that
it does not sound like you have a supply problem. That doesn't sound like you have a supply problem at all. I would focus for the next week just on demand. Don't worry about supply at all. Just 100%
that's what I
next
mean.
Week. Yeah.
Great.
Cool. Well, it's fantastic to meet you, Emilio and Rafaela. Congrats on launching and getting your first customers. Excited to see how far you get during the build sprint.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Cool. Let's do some questions. So we got a whole bunch of questions. I'm going to pull it up right now. And the first question is from Jason, who asks, what is the best way to pull in initial users? I've been doing cold outreach and Twitter DMs, but it seems so forced. It is going to feel forced. Like part of doing a startup is an exercise in doing things that you're not used to, especially if you're an engineer or a programmer or a technical person. Doing sales feels hard, and that's an okay thing, and it's almost a good thing, because if it was easy, then more people would do it and they would steal your users. So if you do the hard thing, you're already 10x better than the average founder. Most founders just love to do the easiest thing, and they love to kind of just like build the easiest thing being like build a product, not really talk to users. So if you're out there talking to customers, talking to potential customers, that's already the best first strategy. In terms of other places to find initial users, there are tons of different places on the internet. The question that I like to ask myself when thinking about where to find other users on the internet is looking at my initial users, looking at the people who are already on the platform. Where do they congregate online? What are the blogs that they read? What are the forums that they hang out on? What are the hashtags that they follow? What are the influencers that they follow? And kind of working backwards, find the source of these users. This could mean something as simple as within your friends and family, finding people to talk to about your product. Could mean finding an online community, like a subreddit or a forum or a Discord server that people talk to each other on. You could also post about it on Twitter. You can create a kind of pre-order, pre-launch campaign. You could put up a landing page. There are many ways that you can get the word out to early users. I think that cold outreach and contacting people over Twitter is amazingly, it's great. Another thing that I always like to do is to get warm introductions from friends. So if you think about this thinking backwards process and finding the source of where users potentially live, you may build what are called like demographic profiles of potential users. Like, I'm going after people in Ecuador who are between the ages of 20 to 35, and who are mostly women. And so you can work backwards to think, do I know any of those people? Do I have any friends that know people like that? And really putting the word out there that you are looking for any and all warm introductions to people of this type. Next up, Oscar, what are the best practices for creating a community? That's a tall order, Oscar. Building a community is not necessarily for all startups, but startups that thrive or have some benefit if you have friends on the platform as well. I always like to say, like, if your company is, if your product is something that's better, if your friends use it as well, then it may be worthwhile trying to figure out how you could build a community around your product. And the easiest way to do that is just to provide a way for your customers to talk to each other. This could be as simple as a hashtag that people post about on Twitter, or it could be a Discord channel or a Slack group, or for most people around the world, it could be as simple as a WhatsApp group. I think some of the best kind of small communities start as WhatsApp groups. And if you're running, if you have 10 users on your product and they're interested in talking to each other, just ask them for their phone numbers and add them to a WhatsApp group. It could actually be a way for you to get more users as well if you let other people join the group, join the WhatsApp group as well. And it can grow from there, but that's generally the best way to start. Jack asks, how does YC evaluate the outcome of the build sprint? I guess there's two questions that you could be asking here. I'll answer both. So one is, how do we evaluate companies that go through the build sprint when they apply to YC? Last batch, around 30 to 40% of all the companies that applied to YC actually went through the build sprint. So you're in good company, especially if you decide to apply to YC after. And, oh, sorry, I think that's companies that got accepted into the YC batch. 30 to 40% of them participated in the build sprint, if I'm not mistaken. So that means that a lot of you that are participating may go on to apply to YC, and a lot of you may get into YC as well. We view the build sprint as an indicator that you are passionate about your startup and you are working hard to accomplish a set goal. And those are signs that we've seen that indicate like how much you care about your startup and how much kind of more dedicated you are to this than the average founder. So it's a fantastically good thing. In terms of the numerical result from the build sprint, we're not as worried about that. Every company has a slightly different goal, and so it's almost impossible to compare the outcomes kind of numerically. So we don't actually look at kind of the numerical answer. We look more at, are you participating and have you set a goal, and did you try to accomplish it? And did you get close to accomplishing it? Kyle, who runs Startup School, lets me know that 34% of YC companies in this last batch participated in the build sprint. Next question from Ethan. Does YC deny solo founders? I mean, the answer to your question is absolutely no. I was a solo founder when I went through YC with my company 10 years ago. And we invest in a number of solo founders. So no, we don't deny whatsoever. We accept many of them. That having been said, it is very hard to build a startup by yourself. Simply because there's so many moving pieces that you need to work on. You need to build a product, you need to talk to users, you need to do marketing, you need to do sales. There's so many things that you need to do. It's sometimes really hard to do this all by yourself. I know it is very hard to do by yourself. The most successful companies that we've seen generally have more than one founder. And it's because when you're at this initial stage, it's difficult to do it all by yourself. The good news is Startup School has your back. We've recently created a new feature as part of Startup School that helps you find a co-founder. This is still rolling out. It's not available to everyone yet, but we are working hard to make it easier for you to find a co-founder. Next one from an anonymous attendee. Should I charge early users? Great question. If I were to answer this in one sentence, I would say yes, you probably should charge early customers. The reason being is you just get so much better feedback from someone who is paying for a product than someone who is not paying. Think of it in your life. There are probably dozens, if not hundreds of websites that you've signed up for free from Product Hunt. How many of them do you actually go back to on a regular basis? The ones that you're paying for are ones that you've made this kind of psychological decision to become invested in. And for that reason, you actually want to make sure that the product does a better job than one of these random free products that you've signed up from on Product Hunt. And so if you're an early startup founder, if you're trying to talk to your first users, you want to talk to people who are passionate, who really have this problem, who really want to see the problem solved. And the best way, the easiest way to separate those from kind of generic free users is to just charge people. And it feels hard. It feels like you're doing something that's going to be antithetical, that's going to block you from hitting your goals. But in the short run and the long run, it's actually more effective. You get better feedback and you get a sense for whether you actually are solving a real problem for your users. Now, just like all of YC advice, it doesn't apply to everyone. There are certainly many companies and many products where it might not make sense to charge your early users. But I would hazard a guess that's not you. I would hazard a guess that most likely you should be charging your early users. Natasha asks, how do I balance user research versus product building in the early stage? Incredibly important thing to balance. Let me just find this this Michael Seibel post. It's called the Michael Seibel product development post. Development thing. I'm going to post it in the chat right here. If you're looking for a strategy on how to talk to users and build product, I would highly recommend reading this blog post. He provides the outline for a 1-week cycle that includes creating a hypothesis, which is something like what we were talking about with Jenny. We were talking about how you could have a hypothesis like, I think that this website for connecting caregivers to elderly folks is best for elder care centers. And I've talked to a few users, but I want to now test that hypothesis. That's an incredibly good kind of thing to focus on for just say 1 week. And what I would generally try to do is to kind of cycle between user research and product building, and not just do user research or just do product building, to actually put them together in this kind of 1 week long cycle. That way you never get too far from your users, and you never get too far, or your product never slows down that much from the build cycle. Next question from Pav. What type of growth and on what metrics do you normally see during this 4-week build sprint in companies that get into YC? Okay, so we don't actually look at, like, we're not looking at the numbers here and saying this is what will get into YC or what won't get into YC. And I said this is simply because there's like an infinite number of different companies, and it's impossible to create a one-size-fits-all kind of guidepost. What we have seen from some of our most successful companies is momentum. This is growth in the dimension that you've picked to be the most important. And again, most companies will probably pick revenue as the most important kind of KPI or metric. So when companies have growing revenue week over week growth, that's usually a really good sign. During YC, companies that are moving very fast generally grow their revenue between 5 to 10% week over week. Sounds like a lot, or not that much, depending on your perspective. If you're at $10 per week, that's only adding $1 per week in revenue. But that momentum, whether it's small or large, that momentum, regardless of how big your company is, it's kind of this momentum that just keeps your company growing. And it's the law of exponential returns. If you can maintain that sort of a growth rate, the number gets big very, very quick. Amit asks, during the initial stage, is revenue more important or number of customers? I think I kind of covered this before. I think revenue is generally more important for the vast majority of companies. It's more of a sign that you're building something that people want. Now, for some companies that are building more like consumer social apps, it's possible. Or if your product has like extreme network effects and you think that there's a big benefit to getting tens of thousands of users on your platform initially, it's possible that you may pick number of active users as a better metric. But in general, again, for 90% of the companies, it's usually revenue. Next one is from James. How do you deal with investors who want to give small amounts of capital at insane valuations? 20K investments at $3 million valuation. Is that just a distraction? Totally depends on your startup. 20K is a lot of money. You could build quite a startup on $20,000, and I'm sure that there are many people on the call here that would love to see investment in the range of $20,000. Maybe the way that I'm going to answer this question is going to talk to investors is kind of being part of the startup community, and you want to be careful as you talk to investors to kind of treat all offers as reasonable until proven otherwise. So it's possible that someone who is giving you a low valuation may not understand exactly how startups work. Oftentimes, some of the best angel investors are people who are passionate about the industry that you're in, but may not be investing in startups on a regular basis. And in that case, you may need to tell them, kind of explain the process to them, explain them how a safe works, explain to them that you've already raised money already at X or Y valuation, and that usually, the investment, the valuation grows, especially if the company is doing better. But I wouldn't I would always be polite and recognize that while this investor may not want to invest in you at this time, it's possible that they may want to invest in you at a later time, or they might have the ability to introduce you to other folks who would actually be interested in investing. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially for people that seem like they are less aware of how startup investing works. When in doubt, you can also refer investors to Startup School. There are several videos that we have in the Startup School curriculum on safes, how to invest in startups, and how kind of startup financing works. So if they're learning about this for the first time, they could actually benefit from that video as well. Maria asks, do you recommend any platform to find beta users? Yeah, I talked about this already. We've seen a lot of companies find their early beta users on Reddit, on Discords, on Slacks. But again, it can be as simple as just starting a WhatsApp group and inviting your friends to invite their friends to it as well. It's a great place to find your first users. Uptal asks, how do you effectively zero in on a technical co-founder if tech has initially been outsourced? Interesting. Actually, I'm gonna, Uptal, are you on the call? I might ask you to just jump in and kind of clarify this. I'd like to learn a bit more about the situation. Are you there? Is it possible for us to find Uptal? Sec.
Yeah, can you search in the attendees?
Yeah, but it's not coming up.
Okay.
Too bad. Next time. Sorry about that. You can also tweet at me at Eric Migi on Twitter if you have a question, and I would happily kind of do any follow-up. Okay. Let me choose one more question here. Here's a good one from Daikun. They ask, it's difficult to judge how much value my product provides to early users. How do I figure out how to price it other than to look at what our competitors are charging? Product pricing is hard. Picking prices is very hard. I remember when I picked the first price for Pebble, the smartwatch that I worked on back in the day, I really just licked my finger and stuck in the air and picked a price that I would want to pay myself. I was like, not too expensive, but not too cheap, and that turned out to be the price that we stuck to for 3 years. So there's not always a rhyme or reason, especially on the consumer side of pricing. The good news is on enterprise, for SaaS products and for B2B products, you don't actually have to be right the first time you pick a price. And sometimes people get a little bit too caught up at the beginning picking a price. What you can do if you're selling SaaS, or if you're selling software, or if you're selling an enterprise solution, is you can always charge more. There's no rule that says once you put a web price on your website that you can't change that price to be more. So I would encourage you to not worry too much about price for your first customers, or to just figure out, how big a pain, you're already doing the right things. Like, how big a pain point do they have? What is their budget for solving this problem? What are some other competitors that you're being compared against? And kind of take a guess at what you think the price should be. If you are actually building something that solves a real problem and your customers love the product, you can always raise the price later. There's no rule that says you can't do that. Just look at Netflix. I started paying $9 a month for Netflix. Now I think I'm paying like $18 per month. So there's totally ways that you can raise the price, even on consumer apps. Cool. Well, there are, I just noticed now, about 3,000 more questions. I'm very sorry if I wasn't able to get to your question, but if you'd like to ask me directly, you can tweet at me at Eric Migi on Twitter, and I will do my best to get back to you. Thank you all for joining this call. This is always a lot of fun, and I'm really looking forward to catching up with you next week. Same time, same place. Cool. That's it from me. Thank you from YC and the Startup School team, and good luck on your build sprint. See you next week.